from Rajghat, the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi, where the leaders of the G20 countries and those participating in the G20 summit in various capacities, invitee countries, invitee organizations, etc., have started arriving at the Rajghat. We are beaming you live visuals from Rajghat.
Yes, heads of the Asian Development Bank and the Financial Stability Board you saw on screens. Currently, the head of the Financial Stability Board is in Rajghat. The objective is to pay respects to India's father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at Rajghat, the final resting place of Mahatma Gandhi. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in 1869 in India and inspired millions of people with his philosophies and principles. And today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi present there, felicitating the G20 member countries, international organizations, as well as invitee organizations. The head of the Asian Development Bank being felicitated by the Prime Minister. And the DG of the International Labour Organization now walking in, and on your screens is the head of the Financial Stability Board. They are all being felicitated one by one by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on day 2 of the G20 Leaders Summit. Yesterday, we saw a series of handshakes at Bharat Mandapam on day 1 of the summit. And now, felicitation by India, the host nation of the 18th G20 Summit.
What you see in the backdrop is the picture of Sabarmati Ashram.
Yes, the head of the IMF, Kristalina, is also there, and the DG of the ILO being felicitated right now by Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
And the Prime Minister presenting a khadi neck gear to the visiting dignitaries.
Yes, and that has a lot of significance in the context of the Gandhian philosophy as well. Gandhian philosophy is to promote self-reliance, and charkha and khadi symbolize self-reliance. Prime Minister has been emphasizing on being vocal for local, and this emphasis on khadi is a reflection of that. The IMF chief being felicitated now by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The IMF is a partner organization of the G20. And the IMF has put out...
the Prime Minister now explaining to the IMF chief about the place where Mahatma Gandhi stayed on the banks of the Sabarmati River in Ahmedabad.
And now, Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, walking in. Remember, 2nd of October is celebrated by the United Nations as the International Day of Non-Violence. 2nd of October is the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi followed the path of truth and non-violence while leading the successful campaign for India's independence from British rule. World leaders have been greatly inspired by Mahatma Gandhi in the past and continue to be inspired even today. Antonio Guterres being felicitated. He is the head of the United Nations. The Secretary General of the United Nations being felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The leaders will be laying wreaths later as a mark of respect for India's father of the
Ajay
nation.
Singh Banga, the President of the World Bank.
The two leaders locked in a conversation. The World Bank, in fact, has lauded India's financial inclusion as well, powered by India's digital infrastructure, saying that India has achieved in 6 years what otherwise would not have been achieved in over 40 years. And now, the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, walking with a stick. He had met with a minor accident some days back. Dr. Tedros walking in the premises of Rajghat. He will soon be felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A solemn occasion for everyone to remember the teachings and philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi that have so much relevance in the current context as well, in the wake of a conflict that we are seeing raging between Russia and Ukraine. And that underlines the importance of peace and non-violence, for which Mahatma Gandhi stood for. The world is also facing a challenge of sustainable development. The Sustainable Development Goals are off track. Mahatma Gandhi's life was a life of minimum carbon footprint, a life in tune with sustainable development, in tune with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of mission life, which is having sustainable lifestyle choices. Mahatma Gandhi also was very keen on sanitation and cleanliness. He said that cleanliness is next to godliness. And sanitation, of course, is a key health indicator. The OECD's head now walking in, being felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, leaders around the world, some as legendary as Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King, have also been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, and the head of the WTO now walking in. We've seen the reference on the need for reform of the World Trade Organization and the multilateral trading system in the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration as well. Mahatma Gandhi's focus was on self-reliance in his economic policy, because that was the need of the times. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been emphasizing on Make in India and being vocal for local. Posing for the shutterbugs, the DG of the WTO felicitated. And now, the Deputy Prime Minister of Oman walking into the premises of Rajghat. The philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi of truth, peace and non-violence continues to be relevant in the international context today. It is a day to remind ourselves of Mahatma Gandhi's message of peace and non-violence. Now the Deputy Prime Minister of Oman in Rajghat, the leaders have gathered there on the second day of the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi. It's a solemn start to the second day of the G20 Summit. India has included the visit of the dignitaries to Rajghat in the itinerary on day 2, perhaps to remind the world that the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi continue to be relevant in the contemporary context. A handshake between the two leaders. The Deputy Prime Minister of Oman being honored by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. India stood by Oman even during the COVID-19 pandemic, sending in medicines, ventilators, other medical equipments to Oman. There are age-old millennia ties between India and Oman. Prime Minister talking to the Deputy Prime Minister of Oman on Mahatma Gandhi's teachings. And the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, now walking into the premises of Rajghat, the final resting place of Mahatma Gandhi, where his mortal remains were cremated. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Bangladesh Prime Minister held a bilateral meeting on the 8th of September, one of the first few bilateral meetings that the Prime Minister has held on the sidelines of the G20 summit. When Mahatma Gandhi was leading the independence movement, Bangladesh was very much a part of India, because this was an undivided India then.
Her Excellency, the Prime Minister of the People's Republic of Bangladesh.
Bangladesh's Prime Minister at Rajghat, and a handshake between the two leaders. Bangladesh's Prime Minister being felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders locked in a conversation. World leaders have gathered on the second day to pay their tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. Ever since he took over as the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi has ensured that Mahatma Gandhi's ideals, principles and teachings are held aloft. Egypt's President
Al-Sisi, the
now
Egyptian
walking in.
president, now walking in the premises of the Rajghat.
Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, the leader of Egypt, being greeted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Recently, Prime Minister was in Egypt, where he was honored with the highest civilian honor there, Order of Nile. India and Egypt are strategic partners. India was a strong voice in the inclusion of Egypt in the BRICS bloc recently. Egypt has a very strategic location. So leaders walking in Rajghat premises to pay tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. Now Mauritius leader Praveen Jugnauth in Rajghat. Like we've been saying, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has ensured that Mahatma Gandhi's ideals, principles and teachings are held aloft, both in India and abroad, through his speeches and actions. And an effort by the Indian G20 presidency to take the world's attention to the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, which have so much relevance in the context of G20 as well, because the focus is on human-centric development, something that Mahatma Gandhi always stood for. He always stood for the last man standing. He sent out a very strong message on sustainable development. Mahatma Gandhi's words, "Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not any man's greed," has a lot of relevance and thus resonance in today's context. Mahatma Gandhi said, "I will give you a talisman. Whenever you are in doubt or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man whom you have seen and ask yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him." And now, the Netherlands Prime Minister walking in to be greeted soon by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. To continue with the Prime Minister, with Mahatma Gandhi's message, his famous words, just contemplate about your actions and think if the community will gain anything from it. Will it restore to him control over his life and destiny? In other words, will it lead to Swaraj for the hungry and spiritually starving millions? Then you will find your doubts in yourself melt away. So this keeps the humanity at the center of Mahatma Gandhi's message, and human-centric development is the message of India's G20 presidency. Now the President of Republic of Korea,
फोकस में ही है, वो आने दीजिए, दूर वाले।
His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Indonesia.
right, Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong being greeted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Mahatma Gandhi with the charkha, a message of self-reliance. Mahatma Gandhi, in fact, conceived the Khadi program as a key to solve the economic problems of the country, and according to him, its one great merit is that it solves, as nothing else can, the economic problem of Indians and removes starvation. This is relevant in the context of G20 in light of the focus on poverty alleviation as a sustainable development goal and focus on decent work under the Labour and Employment Working Group. So Khadi promotion has current relevance in the context of poverty alleviation and decent work particularly. Mahatma Gandhi associated Khadi with his unique concepts of peace, non-violence, trust and self-sufficiency. With the all-pervading inspiration given by Gandhiji, Khadi not only prospered but also became the livery of the freedom movement in spite of the stiff opposition from the British government. Khadi means hand-spun and hand-woven cloth. In 1918, in fact, Mahatma Gandhi started his movement for Khadi as a relief program for the poor masses living in India's villages. Spinning and weaving was elevated to an ideology for self-reliance and self-government. Gandhiji presented Khadi as a symbol of nationalism, equality, and self-reliance. It was his belief that reconstruction of the society and effective satyagraha against foreign rule can be possible only through Khadi. He said that every village shall plant and harvest its own raw materials for yarn, every woman and man shall engage in spinning, and every village shall weave whatever is needed for its own use in order to promote self-reliance. Gandhi saw it as the end of dependency on foreign materials, symbolizing foreign rule, and thus giving a first lesson, in fact, of real independence. Raw materials at that time were entirely exported to England and then re-imported as costly finished cloth, and that deprived the local population of work and profits. Mahatma Gandhi also felt that in a country where manual labor was looked down upon, it was an occupation to bring high and low, rich and poor together to show them the dignity of hand labor. This has relevance in the context of equality, another sustainable development goal that the world has committed to achieving by 2030.
Her Excellency, the first Vice President of the Government of Sweden.
Hello, Excellency. Good morning. This is Guardian way of life.
The leader from Spain being greeted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Pedro Sanchez could not make it to the G20 summit because he's tested positive for COVID-19. This is India's bid to remind the world about the teachings and relevance of Mahatma Gandhi that continue to be relevant in the current context and continue to have the potential to guide the world on dealing with current challenges, from conflict resolution to ensuring sustainable development.
Her Excellency, the Minister of Economy of Mexico.
The Mexican Minister of Economy now walking in. Mexican President could not make it to the G20 summit. So it is the Minister of Economy of Mexico who is currently leading the delegation from Mexico, a Latin American country in the G20, one of the three Latin American countries other than Argentina and Brazil. G20 leaders, invitee country leaders and international organizations being felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's a solemn start to day 2 of the G20 Leaders Summit, a start which is underpinned by inspiration that the life of Mahatma Gandhi has been for world leaders, from his contemporaries to the present leaders.
His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Nigerian President now in the premises of Rajghat. All African countries have welcomed the inclusion of African Union in the G20 as the 21st member of what is now effectively a G21. Sustainable development means to fulfill the present needs without compromising the needs of the future generation. And Mahatma Gandhi's way of living is the best example of sustainable development for the world. Mahatma Gandhi can be seen riding a bicycle there. The various sculptures at Rajghat depict various aspects of Mahatma Gandhi's philosophies. Rajghat is dedicated to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Located on the banks of the river Yamuna, it marks the spot where he was cremated. Leaders of G20, member states, invited organizations, and the Argentinian leader now walking into the premises of Rajghat. Mahatma Gandhi has inspired leaders around the world, from Nelson Mandela, the anti-apartheid activist and former president of South Africa, who drew inspiration from Gandhi's principles and referred to him as his role model, to Martin Luther King, the famous activist and revolutionary during the American Civil Rights Movement, who was inspired by Gandhi and advocated non-violence and inspired millions of African Americans to fight for their rights. He famously said, "Christ gave us the goals and Mahatma Gandhi tactics." In fact, Nelson Mandela, who led his country's journey to independence, was dubbed as the Gandhi of South Africa. And it is worth noting that Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi had never met, but both the leaders followed similar philosophies during their political struggles, that is truth or satya and non-violence or ahimsa. Even Albert Einstein was inspired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, German-born theoretical physicist, once said, "I believe that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men of our time." So one of the greatest physicists of all time, Einstein and Gandhi admired and respected each other, and they also wrote letters to each other. Einstein praised Mahatma Gandhi's principles of non-violence in his letters and audio recordings that he had addressed to Gandhi. The letters date as far as 1931, even before the Second World War began. And one of the excerpts reads, written in German and translated in English, "You have shown through your works that it is possible to succeed without violence, even with those who have not discarded the method of violence." So leaders of G20 member countries, invited countries, and international organizations walking in.
His Excellency, the chairperson of the
African Union chairperson, the leader of Morocco, Comoros, I beg your pardon, walking in. Such a camaraderie was evident even yesterday on day one of the G20 Leaders Summit. The leader of Comoros is now the chairperson of African Union, a bloc of around 55 African countries, which is now the newest member of the G21. This has been a historic summit in that sense as well. Even John Lennon has been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi's principles were and still are applicable in all fields, as Lennon, the British musician and member of one of the most popular bands of all time, the Beatles, was inspired by Gandhi. And John referred to Gandhi as an influence on his music. So such has been the influence of Mahatma Gandhi on people who are distinguished in all walks of life. Former US President Barack Obama had opened up as well in the past about his fascination with Mahatma Gandhi on several occasions. He had mentioned that in his book, A Promised Land. Obama praised Gandhi for several non-violent campaigns against the British rule, calling him a beacon of hope for other dispossessed and marginalized groups. Barack Obama, the former US president, was once asked by a kid from Wakefield High School in 2009 that if he could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who that person would be. And he answered, well, dead or alive, that's a pretty big list, you know. I think that it might be Gandhi, who is a real hero of mine. So Barack Obama has also expressed his fascination and admiration for Mahatma Gandhi. Obama had once revealed that Mahatma Gandhi's portrait was hanged in the Senate office to remind people that the real results come from people. Anthony Albanese, the Prime Minister of Canada, in the premises of Rajghat. Oh, I beg your pardon. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at Rajghat. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was recently in Australia. The two leaders had met. The Australian Prime Minister and Prime Minister Narendra Modi posing for the cameras. And Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau now walking in. It's a day to remind the international community of the relevance of Gandhian thought and action. Ever since Prime Minister Narendra Modi took over as India's Prime Minister, he ensured that Gandhi's ideals, principles and teachings are held aloft both in India and abroad through his speeches and actions. The National Salt Satyagraha Memorial, dedicated to the nation by him in 2019, also recreates that spirit and energy of one of the defining moments of India's freedom struggle, with the depiction of Dandi March. Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, an initiative very close to the Prime Minister's heart and flagship initiative of the Government of India, is inspired by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and was launched on Gandhi Jayanti in 2014. Prime Minister had said then that a clean India would be the best tribute India could pay to Mahatma Gandhi on his 150th birth anniversary in 2019. And then in 2019, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had declared India as open defecation free, with every household having an access to a toilet. Swachhata or cleanliness or sanitation became a mass movement, and that is reminiscent indeed of the days of Mahatma Gandhi, when the quest for freedom had become a mass movement. Mahatma Gandhi's favorite hymn, Vaishnav Janto, had gone global, with artists from over 124 countries contributing musically to it. That project created a global appeal to a beautiful Indian bhajan. The Sabarmati ashram, set up by Mahatma Gandhi in Ahmedabad, has also been brought to the forefront of Indian diplomacy. In Prime Minister Modi's presence, several global leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Japan's Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, had visited Sabarmati Ashram to pay homage to the Mahatma. And now Ursula von der Leyen walking into the premises of Rajghat. The pictures of Prime Minister and various world leaders using the spinning wheel at Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad brings back memories of Gandhi's use of the spinning wheel, which is visible in sculptures here at Rajghat as a symbol of self-reliance. India has unveiled busts or statues of Bapu in different parts of the world. You saw the Australian Prime Minister being felicitated. So in 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had unveiled a statue of Mahatma Gandhi at the Roma Street, Parklands in Brisbane, Australia. Earlier, we saw the Singaporean leader also being felicitated. And there was in 2018 an unveiling ceremony of Mahatma Gandhi's plaque in Singapore. Mahatma Gandhi's busts and statues have been unveiled in different parts of the world, from Australia to United States, from Germany to Singapore to the United Kingdom. The sculptures and statues and busts at Rajghat are a reminder of the relevance of Gandhian philosophy in the current context. Former US Vice President Al Gore had talked about Gandhi's values and teachings relating to global warming. Al Gore acknowledged Mahatma Gandhi's influence on him. He had once said, Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha can be translated to mean truth force. He said it is this truth force which can help us fight this battle honestly and with people's participation. The battle against global warming, that is. And now, Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan. There was a bilateral meeting yesterday between the two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Japanese Prime Minister. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe had visited the Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad. In Mahatma Gandhi's opinion, in any scheme of development, man should be at the center. A long-term view of development has to be taken, for we owe our debt to prosperity as well, and to posterity too. Man has to make a judicious use of natural resources. He used to say that the ecological balance should not be disturbed. The objective should not be to build islands of prosperity in the ocean of poverty. This is the underlying principle of India's G20 presidency of human-centric development. Charles Michel now walking in. He was earlier preceded by Ursula von der Leyen. Both leaders are office bearers of the European Union. The European Union is a member state of the G20. An entity of several European countries, which is a member of G20. Mahatma Gandhi believed in Sarvodaya, and therefore the welfare of all was the basis of his thinking. Hence his community-centered approach towards sustainability emphasized on betterment of human life and ensuring fulfillment of basic needs of all human needs. Welfare of human being being the ultimate goal by avoiding all sorts of exploitations, Gandhi felt that human dignity needs to be established. Mahatma Gandhi was an economist of masses and an environmentalist without any structured model. He may not have given a structured model of environmental conservation and sustainable development, but he did give a vision for environmentally sustainable development. His trusteeship concept is for Sarvodaya. Every member of the society is the trustee of the wealth generated out of the collective efforts of all. And now the leader of South Korea or Republic of Korea entering the premises of Rajghat. So Mahatma Gandhi's trusteeship concept is for Sarvodaya. Every member of society is the trustee of the wealth generated out of the collective efforts of all. This concept denies individual pursuit and collection of wealth and converts it into the wealth of all for a better society. South Korean leader being greeted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and felicitated. Mahatma Gandhi expected that the trusteeship will result into non-violent and non-exploitative socio-economic relations and development models based on production systems that are centered around the preservation of nature. His sustainable development was based on a holistic paradigm that laid stress on all-round development of individual and society in relation with nature. The entire thinking was based upon the ethical vision in which the individual is at a central position. He used to say that if inward change is achieved, outward change takes care of itself. A judicial shift from the consumer society to the conserver society seemed to be his philosophy, and that's also the demand of modern age. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy on a range of issues before the world, such as tackling energy crisis and water crisis, are also relevant. The greater use of coal, oil and gas has resulted into global warming. The increasing use of biodiesel and ethanol from corn and sugarcane is likely to result in food production shortage and greater water consumption. But ethanol blending could be the answer to the challenge of climate change in a sense by promoting energy transitions. And that is the idea behind the Global Biofuels Alliance launched by India. Minimizing wants was the way that was shown by Bapu, because during Dandi March, somebody brought oranges for him on a motorcycle, and Bapu had then declined the offer of oranges, saying that when you can walk, avoid the motorcycle. Olaf Scholz, German Chancellor, now walking in to the premises of Rajghat. Like we've been saying, even Albert Einstein, who was born in Germany and a theoretical physicist, had said that he believes that Gandhi's views were the most enlightened of all the political men of our time. So Gandhi's thoughts and ideals found resonance in the lives and thoughts of several leaders in different walks of life. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, felicitated by Prime Minister of India. October 2nd is also marked internationally as the International Day of Non-Violence. It is the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, the leader of India's independence movement and pioneer of the philosophy and strategy of non-violence. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni now walking into the premises of Rajghat a day after she held a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of day one of the G20 summit in New Delhi. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy is also relevant in the context of water security. One of the key goals of the government of India domestically, as well as under the G20 presidency, under the overall context of sustainable development, a handshake between the two leaders and Prime Minister felicitating the leader of Italy when she had come earlier on a bilateral official visit. She had praised Prime Minister Narendra Modi as one of the most popular leaders of our times. All the G20 member states have supported India's G20 presidency because of its focus on human-centric development and its solution-oriented approach. The two leaders engrossed in a conversation. Water scarcity polluted water are some of the problems that the world faces today. Declining water table, declining water level, deforestation are some of the challenges. And Mahatma Gandhi was well aware about all such problems in his times. During the independence struggle at Kathiawar region in Gujarat, the drought was experienced, and knowing that afforestation on a large scale can be an effective step to face the water crisis, Mahatma Gandhi asked for plantation of trees. At a prayer meeting in Delhi in 1947, he suggested that water harvesting has to be practiced for irrigational purposes to avoid famines and food shortages. The same was suggested later by M.S. Swaminathan Committee in 2006. This means that Mahatma Gandhi was much ahead of his time. We were earlier seeing Olaf Scholz, and now there's the leader of Turkey, Mr. Erdogan, walking in. A lot of the world's attention has been on Turkey because of its efforts to negotiate with Russia, particularly for the revival of the Black Sea grain deal. Recently, the president of Turkey had met the president of Russia in Sochi as Turkey tries to negotiate between Ukraine and Russia, and alongside the United Nations. The philosophy and life of Mahatma Gandhi can serve as an inspiration. Talking of Germany, the initiative taken by Germany to establish the Green Party and pursue policies consistent with nature's conservation explains the relevance of Gandhi to the environmental sustainability movement, because the founder of the party has said that in the particular area of our work, we have been greatly inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. So Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts and philosophies have inspired leaders across countries, and this is a philosophy or a life that has inspired people within countries, even at a subnational level, cutting across party lines. Some of the quotes of Mahatma Gandhi on cleanliness. So long as you do not take the broom and the bucket in your hands, you cannot make your towns and cities clean. You will make your institution ideal if, besides giving students literary education, you have made cooks and sweepers of them. If you become your own scavenger, you will make your surroundings clean. It needs no less courage to become an expert scavenger than to win a Victoria Cross. And the focus was squarely on cleanliness and sanitation from 2019 onwards under Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself has been inspired by the vision and philosophies of Mahatma Gandhi. But Gandhi had realized early in his life that the prevalent poor state of sanitation and cleanliness in India, and particularly the lack of adequate toilets in the then largely rural India, needed as much attention as was being devoted towards attainment of Swaraj. He said that unless we rid ourselves of our dirty habits and have improved latrines, Swaraj can have no value for us. So along with the struggle for India's independence, he led a continuous struggle for sanitation, cleanliness and efficient management of all categories of wastes throughout his public life from 1893 to 1948 in South Africa and then in India. He dealt with nearly all aspects of sanitation. He dealt with the technical aspect, with the social aspect, with the economic aspect, and its various aspects like personal, domestic, and corporate. The cause of sanitation and cleanliness has been taken up passionately by the Government of India as well, particularly since 2014. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, in Rajghat. At a time of conflict and geopolitical tension, the philosophy of truth and non-violence of Mahatma Gandhi holds a lot of relevance for all parties concerned. This is India's attempt to remind the world to walk on the path that was shown by Mahatma Gandhi of truth and ahimsa or non-violence.
So Sergei Lavrov, clearly a pleased man after the Delhi Declaration's formulation on the conflict, Russia clearly not directly named there.
The Chinese premier about to enter the premises of Rajghat. In fact, Chinese President Xi Jinping has also been to Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad and tried his hand on the spinning wheel as well. The Chinese president has described in the past his visits to Sabarmati Ashram as one of the most memorable and enlightening moments of his life. The pictures of the Prime Minister and various world leaders using the spinning wheel bring back memories of Gandhi's use of the spinning wheel and his advocacy for self-reliance and khadi as a symbol of self-reliance.
His Excellency Premier of the People's Republic of China.
China has also said on record that it supports India's G20 presidency and various initiatives that India has piloted under its presidency. Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, the first Indian origin British Prime Minister who was in India on his first visit, who also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a bilateral meeting on the sidelines of day one of the G20 Leaders Summit at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi, now in the premises of Rajghat.
Rishi Sunak's first visit to India as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Absolutely.
He got married in Delhi.
Yes, it's his first visit as the Prime Minister of the UK to India. In fact, a striking bust of Mahatma Gandhi was unveiled in 2018 in Hull's Mandela Gardens in the UK by the Oscar-winning film director Lord Putnam. In a moving tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, Lord Putnam said, "In a world scarred by conflict and tension, Gandhi's non-violence was the most effective way to deal with situations of injustice. Injustices must be fought, but not by means that result in death and destruction." The two leaders engrossed in a conversation. UK PM felicitated, and now the Indonesian President Joko Widodo in the premises of Rajghat. Indonesia was the previous G20 chair. It said its expectation from India's presidency is of continuity, and India has in fact shown that continuity. One of the signature takeaways of the Indonesian presidency was a pandemic fund. There's a reference to the first call to proposals and a second call to proposals in the G20 leaders' declaration. So India has taken forward the initiatives that Indonesia had taken up, built upon them, and now the baton today will be passed to Brazil as the next G20 chair, and later to South Africa in the years to come. Several schemes of the Government of India have been inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. The Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is one of them. It is a nationwide campaign that was started on the 2nd of October 2014 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The movement aims to clean up the streets, roads and infrastructure of India's cities, smaller towns and rural areas. The objectives of Swachh Bharat include eliminating open defecation, which is an objective that has been accomplished by India, to the construction of household-owned and community-owned toilets, and establishing an accountable mechanism of monitoring the use of toilets. The mission was to achieve an open defecation-free India by the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi by constructing 90 million toilets in rural India, and India was declared open defecation-free on that day, on the day when the world celebrated the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Another initiative which has been renamed after Mahatma Gandhi is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, popularly known as Manrega. This act is an Indian labor law and social security measure that aims to guarantee the right to work. It was launched on the 2nd of February 2006. A flagship scheme of the Government of India aims to enhance livelihood security in rural areas by providing at least 100 days of wage employment in a financial year to every household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. So this is aimed at guaranteeing the right to work. The Gandhi Shilp Bazaar is a government's scheme to promote and market Indian handicrafts and provide financial assistance to different eligible organizations to organize crafts bazaar in various places. And that reminds all of how Mahatma Gandhi has been encouraging everyone in India particularly to be vocal for local and to use khadi products as much as they can. The Gandhi Shilp Bazaar provides a direct marketing platform to poor and small artisans from various parts of the country and enable people to do that, to source their requirement through these bazaars. There's a Mahatma Gandhi Bunkar Bima Yojana as well. It aims to provide enhanced insurance cover to handloom weavers in case of natural as well as accident death and in cases of total or partial disability. Another scheme, Mahatma Gandhi Pravasi Suraksha Yojana, is a special social security scheme which includes pension and life insurance. It was introduced by the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs for the overseas Indian workers in possession of immigration check required passports, which are also known as ECR passports. This is a voluntary scheme that has been designed to help workers meet their three financial needs. One is saving for retirement, another is saving for their return and resettlement, and third is providing free life insurance, offering coverage for death from natural causes. So several schemes have been inspired by the life and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, and there you see the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, in the premises of Rajghat. He had arrived only yesterday for the 18th G20 summit in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in July in Paris for the Bastille Day celebrations. He was a guest of honor at the Bastille Day celebrations. Both leaders had met bilaterally then, and a vision document looking at 2047, the year India achieves 100 years of its independence, was also issued then. Emmanuel Macron are now being felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Prime Minister has been making continuous efforts to take the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi to everyone in India and around the world. In April 2017, Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated an exhibition named Swachhagrah Bapu Ko Karyanjali, Ek Abhiyan, Ek Pradarshani in the national capital to mark 100 years of Mahatma Gandhi's first ever experiment of Satyagrah, which he had started in Champaran in Bihar. And in 2018, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Motihari and took part in the concluding ceremony of Champaran Satyagrah centenary celebrations. Even the Dalai Lama has said that several international personalities are inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's principles of non-violence and harmony, which were born in India. They have understood India's values. He said he has the greatest admiration for Mahatma Gandhi, who was a great human being with a deep understanding of human nature, and his life has inspired him, he said. In June 2018, Mahatma Gandhi's statue was unveiled in South Africa at a railway station in the South African city of Pietermaritzburg. The then External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj, had taken a train journey from Pentridge Station to Pietermaritzburg. And then, in August 2018, the then External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj, had unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Hanoi in Vietnam. In December 2018, Mahatma Gandhi's bust was unveiled in Germany's Trier. A commemorative bust of Mahatma Gandhi was unveiled then by the Ambassador of India to Germany. That was part of Mahatma Gandhi's 150th birth anniversary celebrations at one of the oldest schools there. In November 2018, former President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, unveiled the statue of Mahatma Gandhi in Sydney. In February 2018, the statue of India's Father of the Nation was installed at the India Social and Cultural Centre in Abu Dhabi. Prime Minister had unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi at the Yonsei University in Seoul in South Korea in February 2019. The vision of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has ensured that the Yonsei University, a great citadel of learning, will now have Mahatma Gandhi present virtually, inspiring thousands of young learners. The unveiling of the bust in South Korea was just one of the several initiatives taken by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to carry forward the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi. Cyril Ramaphosa, the leader of South Africa, now in the premises of Rajghat. South Africa has come out in support of the inclusion of African Union as the 21st member of an expanded G20. He had tweeted yesterday welcoming the decision of India and India's success in getting African Union added in a G20. South Africa was the chair of BRICS, and in August, Prime Minister Narendra Modi had gone to Johannesburg in South Africa for the BRICS summit, where 6 member countries were added. Nelson Mandela of South Africa has been inspired by the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi.
In fact, it was in South Africa that Mahatma Gandhi started the experiment of satyagraha, or the passive resistance, the movement of passive resistance.
So Mahatma Gandhi's statues and busts have been unveiled in different parts of the world. In 2019, former President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Quezon City in Mexico. And in 2019, former President of India, Ram Nath Kovind, had unveiled a bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Villeneuve in Switzerland. Prime Minister Modi had paid floral tributes at the bust of Mahatma Gandhi at Piazza City in Rome. To mark the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, a limited edition of customized envelopes with a special stamp of Gandhi was released by the Post and Telecommunications of Luxembourg. The stamp features the bronze bust of Gandhi by modernist artist Amarnath Sehgal that greets visitors at the municipal park in Luxembourg City. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, had unveiled a bust of Mahatma Gandhi at the United Nations headquarters in New York on the 15th of December 2022. 2nd October is celebrated as International Day of Non-Violence every year around the world. And Mahatma Gandhi's bust is a gift from India to the UN and is the first sculpture of Mahatma to be installed at the United Nations headquarters. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had also unveiled the bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Hiroshima, Japan, on 20th May 2023, as recently as that. And you saw some time back Fumio Kishida, the Prime Minister of Japan, also coming to Rajghat to pay tributes to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi, fondly known as Bapu in India. The concept of Sarvodaya, or the benefit of all, is a concept of Mahatma Gandhi that continues to be relevant in the present context, that has been the guiding light of India's G20 presidency, the theme of which is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. That is the benefit of one and all around the world. It's a solemn start to day 2 of India's G20 presidency. Various G20 leaders are coming to Rajghat to reminisce about the thoughts and actions of Mahatma Gandhi and to take inspiration from those noble thoughts and ideas and implement them in the current context. His ideals extremely significant in today's times, in the wake of a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, in the wake of challenges to food security, fertilizer security, energy security, with the world facing the challenge of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals falling off track, when the world is at the midpoint of the SDG journey. There is a mention in the G20 leaders' declaration that just 12% of those targets are on track. So the world is off track on 88% of the SDG targets. Just 12% of the targets look achievable at this point in time, though there's 7 more years to go. And thus, there is a need to take inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi's vision and his own lifestyle. There's a sculpture there at Rajghat showing Mahatma Gandhi on a bicycle. And that should lead all of us to think about our lifestyle choices, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi would like all of us to, under Mission Life, which he had launched in Gujarat along with United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. So the mission Life for Lifestyle for Environment has found mention in the G20 leaders' declaration as well. It's been a key theme of India's G20 presidency. There is a GDP of another kind, not the gross domestic product, but the Green Development Pact, which is mentioned in the New Delhi leaders' declaration, which also aims to take people towards an environmentally sustainable lifestyle and path. In order to fast track the peaking of emissions, not just by decisions that are taken by the government and industry, but also by the environmentally conscious choices that we all can make going forward in our lives. So Mahatma Gandhi's life and philosophy, a reminder to all of us to think and reflect on our lives, on the way we've been leading our lives, on whether we've been leading environmentally conscious lifestyles or not. It is an occasion for the governments to think on how they can go on the path of peace, diplomacy and dialogue, which is the path that India is promoting even in the wake of conflicts and geopolitical crisis. The path of conservation was shown by Mahatma Gandhi in the context of environment, energy, water and more. Mahatma Gandhi always put the common man at the center of his vision. He used to say that in any scheme of development, man should be at the center, and a long-term view, not a short-term view, must be taken of development, because we owe our debt to posterity. And he always called for judicious use of natural resources and striking an ecological balance. the concept of trustiness or trusteeship significant even today. Mahatma Gandhi believed in Sarvodaya, or the welfare of all. That was the basis of his thinking. His was a community-centered approach towards sustainability, emphasized on betterment of human life and ensuring fulfillment of basic needs of all human needs. He famously said, "Earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not any man's greed." Sustainable development means to fulfill the present needs without compromising the needs of the future generation. Mahatma Gandhi's way of living is the best example of sustainable development for the world, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has often said that his life was of minimum possible carbon footprint. India, as the G20 chair, has also taken up the issue of climate justice. India has always said that greenhouse gas emissions should be controlled in light of national circumstances of various countries, and that is something that has found mention in the G20 leaders' declaration as well. In fact, India has been coming up with pioneering initiatives in the context of climate action and energy transition, from the International Solar Alliance that India co-launched with France, to CDRI, which is the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, to IRIS, or Infrastructure for Resilient Island States, that India and UK co-launched, to One Sun, One World, One Grid, that India and UK co-launched, and now Joe Biden, US President, walking into the premises of Rajghat. The famous activist and revolutionary during the American Civil Rights Movement, Martin Luther King, was inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. He advocated non-violence and inspired millions of African Americans to fight for their rights. And he said, "Christ gave us the goals and Mahatma Gandhi gave us tactics." Former US President Barack Obama has also said that he has been deeply inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. When he was asked by a child as to if he could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who that person would be, he said, "It will be Mahatma Gandhi, who is a real hero of mine." Gandhi's portrait was hanged in the Senate office. That's what Barack Obama had also revealed. And this was done to remind people that the real results come from people. Even Al Gore, former US Vice President, has talked about Mahatma Gandhi's values and teachings relating to global warming. And he had also acknowledged Gandhi's influence on him. He said, "Gandhi's philosophy of satyagraha can be translated to mean truth force, and that truth force can help us combat climate change and global warming with the participation of people." The two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden, engrossed in a conversation on the life and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. The two leaders held a bilateral meeting on the 8th of September. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was recently in the United States, where the US laid out the red carpet for him. And in these two visits that have happened of Prime Minister to the US and of US President Joe Biden to India, a lot has been achieved, taking the India-US bilateral partnership to new heights. But there's an emotional bond that India has with different parts of the world, and a very key cog in that wheel is the Gandhian philosophy, because that is the philosophy of the government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is also reflected in the philosophy of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, and Sabka Prayas, that is taking everyone along in the pursuit of development. Taking development to the last mile. These are concepts promoted by Mahatma Gandhi during his lifetime. So, a host of world leaders in India for the G20 summit, and leaders of G20 member states, of invited organizations and invitee countries coming to Rajghat to pay their respects to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. And now the President of Brazil, Lula da Silva, walking into the premises of Rajghat. Brazil is the next G20 chair, so a lot of onus in terms of continuity is now on Brazil. And it has also been announced in the G20 leaders' declaration that a separate working group on women is going to be started under the Brazilian G20 presidency. So that's how one chair builds on the initiatives of another chair. India had focused on women-led development. G20 Empower came up with some very constructive suggestions and ideas. And now the next chair of G20 Brazil is going to take this forward. The handover of the presidency is expected today. And this reminds us of how the gavel was handed to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Bali last year. And look at the camaraderie between the two leaders. The President of Brazil felicitated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So the Indian presidency has come up with various initiatives and suggestions. For instance, in one of the sessions, the Prime Minister spoke of the Global Biofuel Alliance, which was launched yesterday by Prime Minister of India alongside the founder member countries, Green Credit Initiative, and a G20 satellite mission for environment and climate observation, all steps in the direction of sustainable development and environment sustainability. The bedrock of those ideas inspired by the life and philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. The government of India has gone all out to promote Gandhian thought and ideals in different parts of the world, and there is immense respect for Gandhian ideals in all corners of the world. Several world leaders have in the past and continue to be inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. Even the United Nations headquarters has a bust of Mahatma Gandhi. And the International Day of Non-Violence is celebrated around the world on 2nd October, the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. So G20 member countries, representatives of invitee countries and international organizations have all started their day by visiting Rajghat. Later on, there will be a third session, One Future. Two sessions, One World and One Family, took place on day one of the G20 Leaders Summit. There are a number of bilateral meetings also to look forward to. One World, One Earth one family, one future, a vision anchored around human-centric development or development of all, or taking development to the last mile, inspired by the vision of Mahatma Gandhi. Of development, Sarvodaya, and environmental sustainability.
So, as the world leaders gather at Rajghat, arriving one by one, being received by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, these leaders now shall be laying a wreath at the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi. We can see Prime Minister Modi along with the US President Joe Biden, followed by other world leaders who are now proceeding to pay homage to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. The leaders shall be laying a wreath at the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi. You can see them walking barefooted towards the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi.
वैष्णव जन तो तेरे सकल तीरथ तेरा कानो मारे वैष्णव जन तो।
Your Highnesses and Excellencies, thank you for joining us for this special occasion at Rajghat. I will now request the leaders to kindly step forward and adjust the country ribbons on the wreaths, please. We shall now have a moment's silence, please. Thank you, Excellencies.
रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। 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 ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। 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 ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। 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 ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम.
So the leaders participating in the G20 summit, which includes G20 members, leaders of the invitee countries, heads of the permanent invitee organizations like World Bank, UN, IMF, etc., presently at Rajghat after paying tributes to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. The leaders laid wreaths. These wreaths that you see were laid by the leaders a little while back. The Prime Minister received them one by one this morning, and they also listened to Mahatma Gandhi's most preferred devotional song, Raghupati Raghav Rajaram, at the Rajghat. The leaders now proceed to would pose for a group photograph and then proceed for the leaders' lounge at the Mandapam, which is the venue of the G20 summit for the second and the final day of the G20 summit. Today, they shall be participating in the third session called One Future. Later, Prime Minister Modi, in his capacity as the chair of G20, the president of G20, will hand over the gavel to the president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, passing on the presidency ceremonially to Brazil, though officially Brazil will take charge of presidency of G20 on the 1st of December this year. So these are live visuals that we are beaming to you from Rajghat in the national capital, the Samadhi of Mahatma Gandhi.
Wreaths laid by leaders of the G20, invited countries as well as international organizations. A solemn start to second day of the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi, and reactions have also started coming in. Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan has tweeted that Mahatma Gandhi was one among the greatest persons to have walked the earth. His thoughts, ideals and